So this being a lunar observance night, especially what we commonly refer to as a big moon. It's the new moon. Every fortnight, got the new moon and the full moon. So, and on these evenings, we have the opportunity. The lay community has the opportunity, if they wish, to request 3 refuges and 8 precepts. So, people who are staying here as guests are automatically living within that framework. And so, on the 8 precepts, and so it's an opportunity to formally determine them, and they are temporary. Just because if you do the ceremony, it doesn't mean that it's forever. It's temporary. If you've just come for the evening, then it's a way of practicing through until dawn with these precepts, and then after you've gone home, just at dawn, then one lays them aside, relinquishes them. And so we do encourage people to do this, but it is completely optional for our lay visitors and lay guests to do. And it's something that's there's an opportunity, but it has to come by request. And so if no request comes, then I'll just sit quietly and we'll do something else. But if there is a request, then those people wishing to join in, it begins on page 126 in the dark brown volume of the 2 chanting books, 126. And has different sections. So the first part is because there's different formats. So this is the first one, the top one, for a group from a monk. So you're the group, and this evening I'll be the monk. And begins with the words Mayam Bante. And so for those of you who are more familiar with this, you can maybe have your voices a little louder, and for those of you who wish to participate but not quite sure, then just also join in, but maybe not with quite so much volume until you get more familiar with it. So after you've done that 3 times, then we switch to page, you turn over to page 128, and then I'll also walk people through this. And so traditionally, if you wish to take part in this, traditionally it begins with 3 bows, and so. So now that the request has come, I'll chant the Namo Tassa 3 times, and then you chant 3 times. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Now we do line by line. Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. This next line is just I do on my own. Ti sarana gamanang nittitang. So that's just saying that you've completed going for the 3 refuges, and that now we'll go into the actual precepts. And I'll do the Pali, and then you do the Pali, then I'll do the English, you do the English. Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature. Adinna dana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given. Brahmacharya veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from any intentional sexual activity. Musavada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from lying. Sura meraya majapamadatana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to carelessness. Vikala bhojana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from eating at inappropriate times. Nacha gita vadita visukadasana mala ganda vilepana dharana mandana vipusanatana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from entertainment, beautification, and adornment. Uchasayana mahasayana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from lying on a high or luxurious sleeping place. Imani atta sikkhapadani samadhiyami. Imani atta sikkhapadani silena sugatinyanti silena bhoga sampada silena nibbutinnyanti tassama silang visotaye. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammaṃ Sanghaṃ Namasami. So the full moon of June, and by our Buddhist monastic calendar, that leaves 1 month before entering the traditional 3-month rains retreat. So it's the monsoon season in much of Asia. And that's a time of year where we determine to not change communities. We determine to dwell in one place, to greatly limit our travel, to put more emphasis on the study of, in particular, the monastic code, to take times of retreat. So it's a special time of year. So we have 1 more month to go, and over the next, beginning yesterday, with many people within the resident community traveling, now started to return. So over this next few weeks, the community will build back up to its normal level. And so, various people away, taking opportunities for either teaching, visiting family, visiting monasteries. So this tradition of coming together on lunar nights, lunar quarters, goes right back to the time of the Buddha, coming together, practicing together, listening to Dhamma, reflecting on Dhamma, because we can all pick up the teachings in various levels, various degrees, depending on what we're interested in as well, in terms of utilizing this path that the Buddha shared, discovered and shared. And I think it's safe to say that for many of us, the entry point into being here tonight was quite possibly meditation. Interest in meditation. But for others, it might have been more coming in from an interest in the actual teachings. All sorts of ways to become interested. But the Buddha really, he shared a very holistic path. I think I mentioned this last week. The very holistic path of really laying out this noble eightfold path. So it's an eightfold training. And it gives us a framework in which to direct our practice through, cultivating conduct, cultivating right view, right meditation. Really looking at the various aspects of what it's like to be a human being, and then using that those 8 spokes of the Dhamma wheel. So if we look at the Dhamma wheel, which is an image you see a lot in the monasteries, it typically has 8 spokes, or oftentimes it'll have four on one radius and then 8 in the other, and the 4 symbolizing the 4 noble truths. And so I'm not going to focus on those tonight. I thought this evening I'd reflect on a much more narrow aspect, which is really crucial and fundamental to our well-being, and that's understanding in a way the some of the key elements of the roadmap to suffering, for lack of a better phrase. And there's one of the elders that I greatly appreciate, and there's many, and it was often as referred to like the shape of suffering. The shape. How do we end up with stress and discontent and dis-ease, and that suffering, all those different varying degrees? How does that happen? And the way I understand it is, it's what we're picking up. So somebody can inflict pain on us. If somebody hits us, or also even hearing certain things is painful. But the suffering is something else. That non-acceptance, picking up, grasping, shrinking around that experience, not able to deal with it effectively with wisdom, with discernment. That's up to us. So it's like, just to use the example, that if you might have 2 or 3 or 4 people experience the very same thing. There'll be some incident, some maybe the same words, same sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and yet those people will have quite possibly a very different experience and relationship to that. What can be very upsetting to one person might not land at all another person. Or something might be really funny or delightful to one person, and the other person can be offended. So how is that? And so it really boils down to our inner world and how we relate to sense experience. So sense experience being, once more, just to go through that, so what we see, what sights we see, what sounds we hear, what sense we smell, what do we taste, how do we relate to that? What's totally delicious to one person might be just hideous, the most horrible food to another person. The contact with the body, and then also what we think, the intellectual world. And it's how we relate to that sensory input, to use maybe a slightly more detailed, maybe slightly scientific way of speaking about it. And so the Buddhists gave us these various teachings, these different lists, different ways of sort of parsing out how to reflect on experience, the experience of being a human being. And by giving us that, it gives us a framework, something sort of a little bit more tangible, because the mind can just really be all over the place, we know that. But if it gives us a way of looking, it's not making them absolute truths, and it's not saying that they're completely separate, not at all. He's actually looking at that interdependence between the various aspects. So, what I'm going to focus on this evening is around contact, what we refer as contact and feeling, and then also how that affects desire. So these are 3 very, very prominent aspects of this roadmap to dukkha, or stress, suffering. So, as I've already mentioned, when we have contact through the eye, so there needs to be basically 3 things. There needs to be an object to see. There needs to be the sense organ of the eye, and then that has to be functioning. And then when those meet, when they all come together, then you have contact. You have what's called eye contact. So this is going to sound maybe a little bit technical, but it can be useful to really understand this, so that we do have the tools for reflection. So then you have the sense organ of the ear. You have sound. You have a functioning ear, And when there's a sound is heard, there's ear contact, sound. And then the same through the nose, tongue, body, and the intellect. All 6 senses in Buddhist teachings. So then that's how we refer to as contact. And the Buddha made a statement. So sometimes things were left more open, there was more reflective in various ways, but he made sort of emphatic statement. It wasn't sort of maybe, but it was where there is contact, he said, there is feeling. So there isn't maybe a feeling, but where there's contact, there is feeling. And many people find this very significant. So we can't dodge feeling. It's not we're not trying to annihilate our ability to feel. Now, what's important within, especially in this context, when we talk about feeling in this sense, that the way the Buddha presented it, as we understand, is that feeling is just a feeling tone. He's not talking about emotions. That comes into a different category within sankhara. So it's not emotions, it's just literally the feeling tone that is experienced when there is contact. And that feeling tone there's three possibilities: pleasant, painful, and neither pleasant nor painful, just it's in that neutral zone. And so, for instance, right now, I'm feeling 2 out of 3. And so I'm feeling pain. So I've got a bit of a pain in my knee tonight, and also my right back, my sacroiliac on the right-hand side is giving me a bit of trouble today, and the top of my knee. So I'm actually feeling some pain. It's nothing severe, but I feel that. And so and I don't like pain, so strangely enough. And so it's an unpleasant feeling. But I'm also feeling neutral feeling. So when I place my attention, for instance, on my robes, like this robe cloth, on touching the skin, having contact, it's just neutral. But there is a contact. It's a neutral feeling. It's neither painful nor pleasant, but there is a contact there. So that's in the neutral zone. And also, I mean, the temperature of this room, I'm finding neither too hot nor too cold. And so that's a very neutral, but I do feel there is temperature. And so I suppose it's possible that if I look a little further, I might something pleasant. Well, through my eyes, there's pleasant contact. Seeing a room with, full of people that are intent on goodness, this is pleasant. This brings up a pleasant feeling. The Prajnaparamita statue in the background, which is in my vision, I actually really appreciate that image. I find it very uplifting. It's a good reminder. And so it's like this. So you can be feeling actually different things at the same time, all in the same moment. So where we end up with dukkha, so this discontent, dis-ease, stress, unsatisfactoriness, is when we don't want what we're experiencing. We don't want the feeling. So where there's a feeling tone, then depending on our desire, our sort of view on things, so people that like pain would think, great, I've got pain in my right knee and my right sacroiliac. I know I'm being slightly ridiculous, but there are people that actually like pain. If I find that image of Prajnaparamita, if I find it disturbing in some way, then I would not be experiencing pleasantness. I have actually met a couple of people that have been offended by that image. Not many, but it's true that they find it offensive. I don't find it offensive. I find it a very, as I said, uplifting reminder. So there's the contact, there's the feeling, and then based on what we think of something, how we perceive something, what our likes and dislikes, then that is going to determine whether we find something continues to be pleasant, or whether we start maybe feeling this dukkha, this stress. Dukkha is also a word that is used for pain, painful. So there's different ways of relating to that word dukkha. So then that's where that desire kicks in. So if and some of that is just natural, organic desire, natural, nothing wrong with the desire for me to move so that I'm no longer feeling pain in my body. That's actually, if we approach that with discernment and intuitive wisdom, it's a good thing, to preserve the body. The body is impermanent, it is fragile in many ways, and so in a few minutes I probably will. I'll probably move my posture so that I sit on the other side, and so that my body, don't do any damage to my body, so it's no problem. Where the potential for problem comes in is when my mind loses its mindfulness. If I go beyond the contact, beyond the feeling, and then I get, and then beyond the natural desire into craving and tanha and ignorance. So it's ignorant desire is maybe one way of referring to that. So one reason I'm using this example is that earlier today I lost my mindfulness around this, and my mind started going down the track of, oh no, this injury, because about 5-6 years ago I had quite severe problem in my lower back, and it was an increase, it was a more intense experience of the much lesser experience that I'm experiencing now. And so I caught my mind, I noticed myself worrying, starting to worry, kind of that, I've had it in the last few months, it's been really good, I haven't had any of this pain, it's been really, I thought I was over this, I could catch my mind going down that track. Now, when the mindfulness kicked back in, fortunately, in this case, this time I was able to drop it. That mindfulness it's like an escape hatch, and often that's enough, just that mindfulness to catch ourselves falling down that rabbit hole of stress and suffering. So I'm using this as an example where it goes beyond the experience of feeling, so contact, feeling, and then it goes into starting to slip into dukkha. That unwise attention, that unmindful attention to sense experience. And we can find many examples, and so that's why we need to find our own examples to see, well, is this present? Because this is, is there dukkha or is there no dukkha? And using all this mindfulness that we've been practicing. So all of us here have practiced meditation to varying degrees and for various lengths of times, during our lives, and to use that mindfulness for reflection, not to annihilate sense experience or sense contact, not to make ourselves numb or unfeeling, but to actually be able to know feeling as feeling, to know contact as contact, feeling is feeling, to notice if that craving, that unskillful craving is arising, to see if we've gone beyond that, because the next stage is actually the clinging to that, and you start really feeding that desire, and then trying to maybe in an unskillful way get what we want. Now here again, in and of itself, this bodily pain that I'm experiencing now, which I actually will take an opportunity now to shift. Bear with me. So that in itself, done with mindfulness, is not a problem. if I'm mindful and I don't allow myself to slip into that sense of worry, that non-acceptance of the reality of the moment that my body needs to shift. If I then maybe I cling to the idea that, during a Dhamma talk I should never change posture, that I should never do that. I've actually been places where, to change posture halfway through a Dhamma talk, not so good. There's this kind of pressure, I need to change, but this community, nobody seems to do that. Then that's suffering. It's that sort of where the mind has hijacked the thought process. It's hijacked the experience. And I'm not saying that those communities are wrong. That's maybe just their standard, But that's where the suffering gets in. Instead of saying, well, actually, what my body needs, because we don't ruin the body. And I know people, I met a person years ago. I used to do a lot of retreats as somebody living in the broader community, layman. And he was using a chair. He started using a chair in the retreats, which is no problem. But he was quite unhappy about that, because he was really, for years and years, he used to do this intense sitting meditation with full lotus position, and he could endure a lot of pain. But he did tell me a cautionary tale. He said, "Don't do that." He says, because that's how I ruined my knees. To the point where he really had really severe knee trouble, because his willpower. The way he phrased it, although it was along the lines of his willpower was more than his wisdom. And so he was encouraging me towards wisdom and not just developing willpower. So in a way we choose the way of suffering through lack of discernment, a lack of that panya, which is the Pali word which is often translated as wisdom, which I've used a few times this evening already. So for us to develop that panya, discernment, wisdom, what's what? Really understand, to really know a feeling as a feeling. And it's often said, both I think scripturally and also ever since then, many teachers have reflected that our where that between feeling and craving, that desire, that unskillful desire, self-centered desire, unwise desire, and between feeling and that is where we have the most opportunity to cut that string of events that leads us to suffering. That with mindfulness, if we develop that really strong, clear, constant mindfulness, is it then we feel, then we know feeling as a feeling, where there's contact, because contact's going to happen. I mean, unless we lock ourselves in sense deprivation tank, and even there's going to be some sort of contact. But if we go into extreme sense deprivation, we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, think. That's what it's like to be a human being. And aren't we lucky we have all these senses, and if we use them skillfully, relate to them skillfully. But I like to think also that, and I'm just investigating in my own exploration of this, over the last year, decades, but is that even if we do go beyond, we've gone beyond the feeling, and we've gone beyond, and we've that impulse of craving, desire is there, and then we've carried on down that track, on that road to suffering. Is it no matter where we wake up, wake up to what we're doing, we can end up cutting that full-blown dukkha. So if we find ourselves, through the kind of feeding that desire, really getting into that acquisition energy of bhava, really trying to become and get. If we get all the way to that yes moment where we think we really achieved our desire, that jati, that birth moment, psychological birth, just as soon as we're aware of that, it's a bit like, I like to think of the dominoes, if you were to line up, because this roadmap in its basic form has 12 links, and I like to think of if you had 12 dominoes lined up, and let's say it goes okay, you get to contact, and then it hits feeling, and then it's gone beyond to clinging and craving, and then, but if you just take out birth, or take one out, it stops. It never gets to the last one, which is sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair, dukkha. You just need to take out one, no matter how far along you are in that. And so to not feel bad if we get beyond this contact feeling area, but take delight that we've noticed. Really think of that as a great, isn't it? That excellent, that I've seen that. And so to practice with these things and to really be using all of the mindfulness that we are cultivating, are developing. And that's the word that's often translated in our scriptural language into meditation is bhavana, which means it's typically translated as cultivation. Cultivating these tools, these inner tools, which lead us to developing this way of non-suffering. We can feel pain but not suffer. We can feel pleasure and not suffer. And you might say, what? No, when I feel pleasure, I'm not suffering. But we can suffer over pleasure. If we cling to pleasure, or if we fall into that very common trap of unwholesome effort to acquire pleasure, if we feel we need to lead our life in a pleasure zone, if we consider that as happiness, and anything other than that as unhappiness, or not how can I phrase it? Not feeling whole. If we only feel whole as a human being when there's pleasure and pleasantness, happiness in our life, then we've created a really big obstacle to well-being. This is a great obstacle to our overall unshakable, unconditional happiness, because needing to have our life lived in the pleasant spectrum of experience is conditional happiness, conditional peace. It's a huge condition that we placed on ourselves. And as the Buddha was leading us to, giving us the tools to realize for ourselves, is the unconditioned. Nibbana is an unconditional state. It's unconditioned. Nirvana, this total, unconditional, unshakable peace that he made us aware of the path that would lead to that. So this is, as I said earlier, is a little bit technical, but it's to utilize all the teachings. There's very few, as far as we're aware, very few teachings where the Buddha was just clearly or only laying down meditation. instruction. But he left behind so many teachings of like this, where it really gives us the tools to reflect on experience. So it's utilizing both. It's using meditation to steady the mind, to clarify the mind, to deepen our mindfulness, to be clear enough, and as is often said in the scripture, to make the mind wieldy, so it can be directed for reflection where we need it. And so, really encourage all of us to not forget the reflective side, and not just be focusing on the tranquilizing meditation or calming meditation, but really developing that side fully, but then using that as our tool, this massive tool to enable us to reflect on experience, so that we actually realize the end of suffering, cut off that suffering. So I think that's enough for tonight, so I'll close the talk there. By the way, those of you who are joining us on YouTube, I forgot to turn the microphone on during the earlier chanting, so my apologies.
We can close with the reflection on universal well-being in English, page 41. May I abide in well-being, in freedom from affliction, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill disciples, who